Alright guys, and welcome to another video. Today we have a very interesting topic to discuss. I have recently listened to a Digital Human episode, which is a bit of a podcast on Radio 4. It's sometimes live on Radio 4, sometimes it's on the BBC World Service, which is a digital version of Radio 4, but nonetheless, this was on the radio. The reason why I picked this up is because my dad was listening to it in the car and told me about it, and then I ended up looking it up and listening to it myself. So Digital Human is a series just talking about technology really and how it affects day-to-day normal human life and how technology has changed society. It's a very interesting series to just kind of listen to if you're, chilling out on the way to work or in the gym or something like that. But anyway, the main reason what this episode is talking about was the corrupted blood incident which happened in World of Warcraft in 2005 after release of Zul'Gurub, which interestingly is actually happening again very soon on Classic WoW. So the corrupted blood has been described as one of the first virtual epidemics or pandemics. One of the first being a Sims, I think one of the Sims game had some kind of bug where, or maybe it was intentional actually, where a guinea pig gave everyone in the game some kind of virus and everyone started dying. The corrupted blood, what it was, it's basically like a typical boss debuff that you get from the boss Hakar, like a typical dot, the kind of a gist that, that kind of thing. And what happened is it would actually spread to nearby players. It's actually a fairly common kind of boss mechanic that you see from time to time on different boss fights throughout World of Warcraft's lifetime, that when you have a certain debuff, it can spread to other players. And obviously the debuffs in World of Warcraft were only ever intended for the actual boss fight, but when the Hakar was released, there was a little bit of an issue where if a pet got infected and you dismissed the pet and then resummoned the pet, then it would still have that debuff. And if you resummoned the pet in Stormwind or Orgrimmar, then the debuff would still be in effect. And because it's a high level 60 debuff, it would absolutely destroy low level players and just one-shot them. As you can see by some of the screenshots I'm going to put on the screen, and the guy who basically is in this episode is called Dr. Eric Lofgren, and apparently players from the World of Warcraft Classic subreddit helped with the making of this episode as well, which is quite interesting. And there's quite a few interesting stories from people who actually played the game back then and experienced this bug. Apparently, people were getting the infection and people were responding in very different ways. Some people were intentionally griefing people with it, which I'm not going to lie, would be something I would do for a laugh, to be honest. So some people were just outright just trying to grief people who were trying to infect the whole world with the corrupted blood debuff by just trying to get as close to as many people as possible by summoning their pet in cities and stuff like that. People were quarantining towns and stuff, so saying that like if you can't come in this town unless you pay us 50 gold, otherwise I will infect you with my pet. There was a load of crazy things happening basically. Other people were responding less maliciously, and classes like basically all the hybrid classes back in Classic WoW could obviously remove the debuff because I think it was considered a disease or something similar. And obviously, people could remove a debuff, and people would go in and making an active effort to tell people don't go into Stormwind because there's an epidemic there, or come here if you want the debuff removed. And they're basically like a bit, because you can call them like first responding medics trying to cure the disease, but ended up actually probably getting the disease. And it became so bad that basically everyone was just dying out in the World of Warcraft, and Blizzard actually had to totally do server resets. So they were just, when you restart a server, which would basically like reset all the debuffs on everyone, but then people would just get the debuff again and just start it all over again. And I think it took about 1 to 2 weeks before this was like totally hot fixed and patched out of the game to where the issue was actually fixed. But for that whole period of 2 weeks, this epidemic was actually just going crazy and just infecting people. And the reason why, I also found a few news articles. I found a news article all the way back from 2005, 22nd of September 2005, when the actual plague happened. There's another BBC article, and basically just explaining what I did, what I've just explained to you there. And then I found another one from 2007 as well, just talking about the same thing. So it's obviously an absolute gaming nerd who works at the BBC. I wonder if it's the same person. I don't think I can see who actually wrote it, unfortunately. But the reason why obviously it's becoming interesting right now is because obviously everyone's worried about coronavirus and stuff like that. And what experts on epidemics, essentially what they do is they try and they are working on simulating virus epidemics in virtual worlds like a video game. And apparently it's actually quite difficult to pull off. So a lot of experts actually refer to this incident of the epidemic in World of Warcraft, the corrupted blood epidemic, and they literally study it. And they study it to better understand how people would respond in that situation, you know, of a real epidemic in the real world. And they actually use this situation from World of Warcraft to improve everyone dealing with an actual real epidemic. So weirdly, the epidemic, the virtual plague, an epidemic in World of Warcraft has actually and is helping deal with real epidemics in the real world, and I find that quite interesting. So I remember watching another video basically making the same point about the auction house and how the World of Warcraft economy has helped our actual economy and our actual stock market, because people use virtual stock markets and virtual economies like the one in the World of Warcraft auction house to estimate, predict, and better understand the real economy. So I found stuff like that quite interesting. If you go to the Wikipedia of the Corrupted Blood incident, which literally has its own Wikipedia, which I find pretty cool, it'll tell you the history of everything that happened and how people reacted. And it's also talking about the Great Zombie Plague pre-Revolution launch, which I did not know about, and I also find to be quite interesting. I want to read about that. There's also a green firebug apparently when Sunwell came out, which again was quite interesting. And then there's a whole section how this has been used for a model for epidemic research, like I was previously talking about, which you may find pretty interesting to read about. I'm not going to read the one below that because I think that's a game's YouTube terms of service, but I think it's quite interesting it would be quite interesting if it did actually release this bug as when Zul'Gurub came out. When Zul'Gurub does come out, I know it probably would be in fairly bad taste if they released the Corrupted Blood incident again, but at the same time, it may also help people again to use the Corrupted Blood incident as a model for research of real epidemics. So it is quite interesting how situations like this happen. There's also, I remember on BBC4, they were talking about, there was a show about dystopia, and it used the closing down of an MMO, which was like one of the oldest, I think it was like the first MMO to come out, which is literally like 2D. I can't remember what it's called, but like someone who used to play that game came onto Radio 4 and basically described how like less and less people started playing the game, and eventually the game kind of like died out. And people have also used situations where, MMOs have just, the player base of an MMO has slowly died out gradually as a model to kind of study dystopia and the general decline of society, I guess, in a way. Like if an epidemic did actually kill people like this, obviously that would be the situation that we would be in, and I also find that quite interesting. But maybe I'll make a separate video talking about that, do a little bit more research into that, because it is interesting how you can draw these comparisons between a virtual World of War, video game and real life, and how it is actually used and studied in the real world. But anyway, my name is the Metagoblin. Until my next video, ciao.